Hello, everyone, and welcome to BodyBags. I'll be your reviewer for today. I'm Lonnie from Tara and Tats, and okay, yeah, I'm sure you guys remember a couple of weeks ago I reviewed the horror anthology All Hallows Eve. You know, especially being all psyched, for Terrifier 2 coming out and everything. So yeah, so I decided, what the heck, why not? This is my other random week, so let's go ahead and we'll review from 2015 All Hallows Eve 2, and this is um, pretty much another horror anthology. Some of the stories are, Halloween themed. Quite a few of them are not, though. But yeah, let's see. Damien Leone, who did the first All Hallows Eve, he only returns as a producer. He didn't write any of this. He didn't direct any of it. Pretty much, yeah, he's only just a producer on this. But what ended up happening is similar to the horror anthologies like, the VHS series or something like Holidays or something like that. Now you have a different set of stories, each one with a different director, different, kind of doing, doing in that vein, like, the VHS series. Excuse me. And so anyway, so our story starts off. We have this, beautiful woman. It's Halloween night. She's drinking some wine. She's dressed in lingerie, as it's always common. And she's on a Ouija board, and she's wanting to know if this guy, that she likes, is he going to call her back and all this kind of stuff. And she keeps checking her phone. It's like, no. Well, okay, so yeah, not starting off such a great night for her, but then she ends up looking outside her window and we see this new character. Unfortunately, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, if you're going into this hoping that you're going to see Art the Clown make an appearance in this, you're going to be very disappointed. Unfortunately, no Art the Clown is, instead we have this new character called Trickster. And unfortunately, if you look at the back here, yeah, none of that is in the movie. Okay, so that kind of, it's a little bit misleading there. Um, but anyway, kind of similar to Art the Clown, Trickster leaves a VHS tape outside her front door, as opposed to in the first movie, the little boy, he ended up getting the videotape in his bag of candy. This time he just, drops the tape off at her front door. Um, Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I just couldn't help it. I found this just a little bit amusing, but I mean, I know there are women out there that do have VCRs, and there are women out there that do like VHS tapes. I know that. I understand that, but it just seems kind of funny because I just thought it was a little bit amusing because most of the women I know, it's like they like most of the women I know, if they're gonna watch anything, they watch stuff on streaming. Um, and if they don't do that, like, they're not really into like Blu-rays or 4Ks, or they're not really into the whole audio video, thing like that. Most of the time, most of the women I know, if they're going to buy movies, they buy them on DVD. And I mean, but like I said, I do know that there are women out there that do like VCRs and VHS, and they buy that stuff. I get it, I understand, I do. It's kind of, just to me, I thought it was. I know I'm rambling here. I promise I'll get back to it, but I just thought it was kind of amusing to me because, just like I said, most of the time, whenever I see, women, and they talk about watching movies, they either, number one, it's either streaming, or if women are going to buy movies, they're fine with just buying them on DVD. DVD is good enough. But anyway, so through with all that. But anyway, so she just, so yeah, she takes the videotape and she calls, she gets a call from a girlfriend of hers, and they're talking, and she's like, oh, of course I have a VCR. Do you realize how much infinitely better Texas Chainsaw Massacre looks on VHS than it does on Blu-ray? Blu-ray makes it look fake and all this stuff. It's like, okay, just whatever. Let's move on. Okay, so yeah, we got a lot to cover here. So anyway, so she starts, she puts the tape in and she starts, watching it. Of course, the tape similar to the first movie. It's a series of short kind of stories and everything else. Um, and the first one, I will say that I gotta kind of get this out of the way real quick though. Just the problem with the stories on here is like everything on here is kind of like it's almost like a little straight shot of whiskey. It's so quick and over so brief that a lot of these stories don't really take the time to sink in. and it's kind of like just kind of like a little, just kind of you're just in there kind of like, okay, well, that happened, and that's kind of really the only way to look at it. So it's, whereas like in the first movie, especially like the third segment, the Terrifier segment, where you got to see Art the Clown and him doing his thing, and there was a little bit more. There was a little. I mean, even though the characters there weren't really much in the way of characters, the characters are just kind of lambs to the slaughter in that in that story. But it was just kind of like there was just more a little more build up to it, and just kind of more a little more bang for your buck in terms of what the stories had in them. This one here is just kind of the stories are just like just so quick and it's over. And so, like I said, that's kind of probably the biggest issue that I have with this movie is just it's not so much the stories are bad. The story, some of the ideas are really interesting. Some of the concepts are really interesting. It's just there's just not enough time in it to really like kind of really get your juices flowing, kind of get you pulled into it, if you know what I mean. But so the first story we have is Jack Attack, and we have this beautiful woman, Lizzie, I think her name is, and she's babysitting this little boy Jack. So they go get a pumpkin, and they bring it home, and she's showing him how to carve a jack o' lantern and stuff like that. And so she's he's pulling out the pumpkin innards and stuff, and she's like, okay, you do that, and I'll separate the seeds. He's like, why? She's like, because these are good. You bake them, you eat them, and stuff like that. And so, she takes the pumpkin seeds, she bakes them, and then, everybody, her, Jack, and their dog, the little boy's dog, they eat the pumpkin seeds, and let's just say things kind of go south very fast, and we'll leave it at that. Basically, it's just, pumpkins getting revenge kind of a thing. Similar like that one story in Tales of Halloween. Okay, so the next story we move to is The Last Halloween, and that's another one. If it's kind of seems like it has this kind of feeling of like a post-apocalyptic kind of vibe to it, and it's almost like an end of the world kind of a thing. But on Halloween night, you have these group of trick or treaters. They're going around, looking for goodies, and pretty much just about the only thing you say is if you don't give them their goodies, yeah, the trick isn't going to be very nice. So sorry if I keep if I'm looking off here, it's just some of the stuff I had to write down so I can remember everything. Okay, the next story is called The Offering, and this is kind of a one thing I'm going to say pretty much about all these stories in this movie. They're all of them are very mean spirited. So if you're the kind of person you don't like mean spirited films, yeah, you're not gonna like this. But if you do like mean spirited films, then yeah, you're gonna probably tend to like this one quite a bit. So yeah, so let's see, what was it? Okay, yeah, The Offering. That's the one we were talking about. So on The Offering, you have the story of a father and a son, and they're driving out and they're putting together this offering that they're gonna give this thing, and it's never we don't know what it is. They don't explain it. It's never really mentioned. Nothing. It's just this thing that they have to make an offering to, and they don't even go into why they're making the offering. Like I said, just like these stories, there's not really any fleshing out of the story. It's like, okay, just this father and son have to, you know, all right, this father and son have to make this offering, and then it turns out there's supposed to be meat in the offering. They don't put any meat in it, so the father has to go to drastic results to put meat in this offering. That's it. That's kind of your story. Then the next one is Descent, and Descent is about a young woman who she is she's going up to her best friend's house, and then she knocks on the door. She's like, hey, you were supposed to meet me at the bar. You weren't there and all this. I'm being hit on by these creepy guys and stuff like that. So she goes into the house, and then she finds out that her, her best friend was murdered, and she hides in the closet. And the guy, it turns out he's still in the house, and he leaves, and then she ends up she escapes and everything else. But then it's like 6 weeks later, she's not really handling things all that well, and then she gets into an elevator with it's the end of the night. She's getting in the elevator. She's getting ready to leave, And then lo and behold, she gets in the elevator with the guy that she saw that murdered her best friend. And so now she's got to try to figure out how to, you know, deal with the situation and try to get away from this guy without him knowing who she is and what's, you know, what the situation is. So it's a pretty tense story, but this one I say is a little bit teeny more fleshed out. At least you kind of have a, you know, it's like, okay, there's a little bit of a more of a reason why things are happening in this story, but okay, so it kind of makes sense, you know, so a little bit more there. Then what's the next one? Okay, Masochist. Masochist is a very short story. This one, I imagine, for the horror fans, this is probably going to be the story that is probably going to stick out the most. You know, I'm sure for some people, you know, like that's the thing when it comes to horror anthologies, you know, certain stories work better for people than others, you know, and stuff. So, but I imagine this one's probably going to really stick out to a lot of horror fans because um, you you have these three boys, you know, they're at this kind of carnival fair, whatever you want to call it, and they're, you know, one of the boys is talking about, yeah, you know, my dad, you know, is like he's at the bar and all this stuff, and you know, yeah, he hasn't run out his tab yet and all this, and so they're just, you know, looking for games to play, and one of the reasons why I say this episode is definitely going to stick out is because we have Bill Obrest Jr., who is, you know, definitely becoming one of the big kind of iconic, modern day iconic actors of horror. I mean, this guy's in almost everything you see anymore, and with good reason because he's a good actor, you know. And he's running this, you know, game and, you know, what was it? Oh God, what was it? Something, something the Sinner or whatever it's called. I'm sorry, I forget the name of the game, or it's called Masochist or whatever. And so, you know, he has this guy. It turns, you know, this guy's basically, you know, kind of like those things you see in the fair where somebody's like tacked them. You know, you can like throw the knives at them, or you know, some throw darts or whatever else at them. But his, you know, choice of things that you can throw at the person is a little bit different. You know, there's like drills, there's like baseballs with, you know, spikes sticking out of them. There's chainsaws. There's all kinds of things like this. And so, you know, they're just like, oh, it's a game, you know, and all this kind of stuff. So they're like throwing stuff at him. And it turns out that the young boy who said that his dad was at the bar, it turns out that his dad is actually the guy who's pinned up on the, you know, the spinning wheel. And so, you know, they're just like, hey, Bill Obrist is like, you know, hey, you know, why don't you take a shot, you know, and you know, we might have a winner, punish the sinner, and all this kind of stuff. And then you come to find out, it's like, well, this kid, actually, his dad very much abuses him, physically abuses him, and stuff like this. So let's just say the story ends with the kid really getting into this game. So we'll leave it at that, you know. Let's see, what's the next one? Okay, A Boy's Life. This one is, it's a pretty decent story. This one, I would say, out of all the stories, really has more kind of character depth in the story than any of the other ones do. This one, it's a slow burn. You know, it's kind of a slow burn story. It's probably the best way I could describe it. It definitely has vibes of like Babadook in it. You know, if you've seen the Babadook, you know, and you know, you have the story of the kind of the widowed mother who's, you know, dealing with, you know, trying to raise a son, and just kind of, you know, like things are hard and the two of them are trying to make things work and all this kind of stuff. And then, as similar to the Babadook, the young boy is, you know, having this monster that is, you know, kind of scaring him, you know, threatening him, things like this and everything else. And like he's trying to tell his mother about it. And at first she doesn't believe him. But then, you know, things do, you know, the mother finds out for herself that you know, that the monster is real. And everything. So the boy wants to try to, you know, like I said, similar to the Babadook, he wants to try to make booby traps and everything, try to catch this monster and stuff like that. And like I said, you know, it's like, yeah, but the mother does come to find out that the monster is real and everything. So, and we'll just go from there, right? Okay, so what we got next? Okay, Mr. Tricker's Treat. Okay, that one is, it's kind of a fun, kind of a dark comedy kind of a story to it. Probably the best way to describe this story, it'd be like, imagine if John Wayne Gacy was decorating his home for Halloween. That's probably about the best way I could explain this. Um, yeah, that's probably about it. You know, it's like, Just this guy, he's decorating his house and his yard for Halloween and everything. And let's just say he has some kind of unconventional ways of, unconventional decorations for his, Halloween setup for his yard and his home. And we'll leave it at that. Yeah, we're down to the final. There's 8 stories in total. And then, so the last story is called Alexia. And it's about this young man who, he had broken up with this woman named Alexia, obviously. And so he's, online. He's, basically it's like Facebook. He's online and he's looking at her homepage and stuff. And it turned out he broke up with Alexia and Alexia had committed suicide. And so he's worried and all this. And so he gets a message from his current girlfriend. And, he's kind of a little bit racked with guilt and stuff. He's like, do you think maybe because I broke up with her, that's why she killed herself? And, do you think maybe it's like, she took it too hard and, and she was just like, oh, don't worry about that. It's like she had problems even before you met her. And, it's like, yeah, don't let that, bother you. And she's like, I want to come over and see you. And he's like, okay, I want, and all that stuff. And then come to find out, it's like, well, yeah, it turns out actually Alexia is a little bit of a jealous kind of scorned ex. And, where are the jealous women at? It's like, I'd like to have a woman be jealous over me. That'd be nice. Anyway, okay, that's not part of the story. But anyway, so, yeah. So it turns out that, Alexia is not very happy with the fact that he's dating a new woman and that the woman is coming over to his place. And so Alexia decides to make her opinion very much known. And like I said, we'll just leave it at that. So overall, just it's just kind of an okay. That's probably the best way. It's just okay. I mean, there's no real Art the Clown here. Trickster could have been something interesting, but it's like he's just kind of there. They don't do anything with him. There's no segment devoted to his character. Same thing, the same like what we have with Art the Clown, which I think the movie All Hallows Eve, I think was kind of built around that, short, the Terrifier short and stuff. So, but just, Trickster is he's just kind of there, doesn't make a really huge impression. Just like I said, the stories are kind of like really quick, just like I said, just like a straight shot of whiskey, and just a lot of the stories just don't really have time to resonate. So, I mean, I would say, kind of go into this, just go into this, but just not really high expectations. And if you're a fan of, Terrifier, you're a fan of Terrifier 2, you're a fan of, All Hallows Eve, yeah, don't look for Art the Clown because he's not in here. But just like I said, yeah, just it's okay. Definitely not, definitely not a real, groundbreaking horror anthology or anything. It's definitely not gonna rank with anything like Creep Show or Trick or Treat or any of that kind of stuff. But like I said, yeah, it's okay. I mean, there are a lot worse ways to spend, an hour and a half. So I would say go ahead and give it a watch. So that's it. I think that's more than enough. So if anybody took the time to watch this, I thank you for doing it, and I appreciate you for doing it. I honestly hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave it a like. If you haven't already, go and subscribe to the BodyBags channel. There's a different reviewer, one for every day of the week. I'm the Saturday reviewer. We have a different bunch of guys. Everybody's doing great stuff. We got some fun weeks ahead of us and everything else. So, yeah, like next week, it's like I think that's when we're doing the Paranormal Activity series, and that's going to be fun to do. So yeah, so everybody come back and take care. Have a good night, and I'll see you all later.